really breaks my heart. Cause we've been lied to, misled for years, calling out to the ghosts high on this trail of tears.
Alright, so today's lesson is called fleeing fornication, right? And this is it's real deep because I just happened to stumble upon some articles this week, and mainly last night actually, that went along with the lesson. I wasn't even searching for it, but just came, you know how you just find something that goes perfectly with whatever was on your mind or whatever. And, excuse me, and these articles, you know, we'll bring up, you know, within the lesson. Actually right now within the intro. But let's start it off. So fleeing fornication.
Fleeing fornication. We live in a day and age where it seems that society has reached the pinnacle of sexual perverseness. Every day it seems that things such as unchastity, adultery, sodomy, and pedophilia have become the new norm and culture of our society. How do we get to a place to where marriage first and until death do us part have become despised?
Right, so the question is, how do we get to a place where marriage first and death do you part have become despised, right? Because you know, it's all kinds of statistics about the divorce rate, the single family rate, you know, things like that. So how do we get to this point where there was a time, you know, in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, even 60s, even in the 70s, where marriage, what was it called? The Big D. You know, nobody got divorced. And it was family first, children first, right? But how do we get to the point that we are now when everybody's living free? Go ahead.
What about same gender relationships?
Right, and what about the same gender relationships? Right, that's the norm, right? Because before, what you call the promiscuous lifestyle, that was the norm. You know, the college frat boy lifestyle that you can't wait to live when you get out of high school, or even in high school when you got the locker room talk, right? And then when you get in your adult life, the club life, we all know what it's about. It's about one thing, and that was the norm. But guess what is the new norm now? It is a new norm. Go ahead, read that from the top, that sentence. What about the same gender?
What about the same gender relationships? Adult-child sexual interactions?
Right, adult-child meaning pedophilia. Go ahead.
And people's sexual relationship with animals.
Right, and that's real. The relationships with animals, that is real. And we'll bring it out later on in the lesson. Go ahead.
All becoming acceptable ways of life.
Acceptable. Go ahead.
Typically, when we think of fornication, these things are what come to mind. However, when we explore deeper, we will find out that fornication is much more than just what we do in the physical nature and has deep spiritual roots.
Right, so while I pull up this article, profiling one of our faithful leaders in the social world who represents us and speaks for us, read the definition of fornication.
This is King James Version Dictionary definition of fornication. It is the incontinence or lewdness of unmarried persons, male or female. Also, the criminal conversation of a married man with an unmarried woman. Adultery, incest, idolatry, a forsaking of the true God, and worshiping of idols. Sexual immorality, sodomy, pedophilia, bestiality, etc.
Right. So, if you will, you could just simply read the headline of this article. Exactly.
Dwayne Wade proudly opens up about watching his son become into who she is now.
Right. I know. The confusion. It's endless. It says Dwayne Wade proudly opens up about watching his son become into who she now is. right? So I don't know if anybody saw the, what's the new word now, the Twitter storm, right? When Dwayne Wade had posted that family picture on Thanksgiving, and his son had on a halter top and some long nails, you know. But this is a follow-up to that. And within the article, this is why it's so key. Where's this in the intro? It says, every day it seems that things such as unchastity, adultery, sodomy, and pedophilia have become the new norm and culture of our society. Direct quote from this article, Dwayne Wade says, this is the new norm. He said, this is the new norm. And he's basically, his argument is because he's getting an interview, so it's showing the transcription of the interview going back and forth. He's like, hey, if you're not accepting this new normality, then there's something wrong with you. Right? So it's when the Salem, what's the cliche? When the insane asylum is running the asylum, or what is it? Right, the inmates are running the asylum. That's what that happened. So we're going to go ahead with the scriptures. Because if he's thinking this way, and it's another article that's, there's another article that just shows the mindset of where America is at right now, AKA Babylon. So we're going to start off with Revelation chapter 17, verse 1. And just to let you know, this lesson does have quite a bit of reading. So some parts will go into it, other parts will kind of just, you know, read the scriptures, because we're going to be reading some things that kind of just explain themselves, because it's more history, right? So we got Revelation 17 and 1.
Revelation chapter 17, verse 1. And there came one of the seven angels which had the seven veils, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters.
Right, so I will show you the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. And most of us already know that this is talking about Babylon. Go ahead.
With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication.
Right, so not only, you know, does she influence the inhabitants of her land, but she have influenced the whole world with her wine of fornication. Go ahead.
So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Verse 4. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication.
Right, now check this out, the parable in this prophecy. Because you got a woman who's decked out, who looks beautiful, but she's riding upon a blasphemous, filthy beast. So she's alluring to the nation, she's alluring to her people that's in her land, but at the same time she's being carried by an abominable beast. So you'll get distracted by her looks and get blinded by that and don't even see reality. Go ahead, Art.
Verse 5. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great.
Right, it's a mystery because she's so alluring. And we all know it's alluring. Go ahead.
The mother of harlots and abominations of the earth.
Right, so let's skip over to the next chapter. We got Revelation chapter 18, verse 1.
Revelation chapter 18, verse 1. And after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird.
Right, so that's the reality of this place. That is fallen, number one, and has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. But guess what? She's arrayed and she's decked out. So it'll just miss you, or you'll miss it. Go ahead.
Verse 3. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies.
Right, because one thing about Babylon is they define what it means to be civilized. And they define what it means to be a progressive society. So why wouldn't you want to be down? They define what it means to be a progressive society, what it means to be civilized. Go ahead, Art.
Verse 4, and I heard another voice from heaven, saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues.
Right, so go ahead with the commentary.
Why is it that most of the time when people think of or talk about fleeing Babylon, is only dealt within the physical sense of migrating to another country outside of America?
Right, so the elders pose a question. Why is it that we only think about leaving or fleeing her physically first? Because it might be another question that we need to ask first. Go ahead.
How often do we hear people say flee fornication?
Right. Never. We can do a poll. Right? How often do you hear people say flee fornication? Never. Number one, well, not number one, because there's a million reasons. But one of the main reasons is the individual lifestyle here in America. Because when you're an individual, you cannot be taught anything, you can't be told anything. You can't receive any type of discipline or order because you think you're smarter than the so-called authority. Or you're smarter than the so-called people that's trying to give you some wisdom, that generational wisdom. Everything is passé, in the past, old school, like you out of touch. You what's the word? Well, old school didn't enough, right? Go ahead, Art.
We see here in the book of Revelation that Babylon has a filthy cup of abominations, and in her hand that is filled with the wine of fornication. And even those who do not physically live in Babylon are drunk from this wine. Showing that fleeing Babylon doesn't just pertain to those who are physically living in Babylon, but for the rest of the world as well.
Now that's deep, because if the people who don't even live in this place need to flee her spiritually, how much more the people that do live here? Go ahead.
Fleeing Babylon first starts spiritually, and in our minds fleeing all the evil and wicked abominable acts and thoughts that America has groomed us.
Keyword, has groomed us in. Go ahead.
Has groomed us in, that are unacceptable to the Most High.
So our grooming has been unacceptable to the Most High. Go ahead.
It's this filthiness and the filthy ways that she has taught us to keep us separated and at odds with our Heavenly Father.
Right. So let me ask you a question. What's one of the key tools that America uses to groom us and groom the world? That's amazing. Everybody at the same time. Yep. For all the Marvel fans out there. I know. And when me and my father was at the show watching Endgame, we both looked at each other like, what? Exactly. And my father said his favorite line, why do I always gotta put this mess in my movies? Right? So you just read the title.
Avengers. Endgame contains MCU's first openly gay character. Russo brothers explain why.
Right, so if you remember that scene, Captain America, he's running like a therapy group, right? Of how people are dealing with the Thanos snap, because half of life is gone. And it's a gay man, and he's talking about his feelings now that his whatever is gone out the picture, right? And it's very subtle, you probably don't even catch it, right? But in the article, why they explain why is because one word is this one buzz, America's the queen of buzzwords.
Inclusivity?
It's the same thing, but it's another word. Representation. Y'all heard that? How we need more representation? And that's what this article is about. So, Sorry for my nerves in here. I got another one. Yep, because what was yesterday's big day in history, right? Star Wars. So this isn't a complete spoiler, but still, it's in the movie. You can just read the headline.
Historic,
Go ahead.
Same-sex kiss and the rise of Skywalker's polarized Star Wars fans get censored overseas.
Right. Now, you would think that the historic same-sex kiss and the rise of Skywalker polarizes Star Wars fans. What is polarity? Opposites. Right? But what are they opposite about? This shows the madness what they're opposite about. Right? Because it's just some random character. When you read the movie, the article, and I will give spoilers, so I'm not going to read, the article or whatever, because some of you might want to see it. But it's a scene at the end where there's a celebration going on. When everybody saves the day, that whole celebration scene that's always in the movies. So it's just these two random actors that don't even really mean anything to the plot. They're two women, right? Now, what do you think they're polarized on? It's not the straight fans versus the fans that want more representation. They're polarized on the fact that there's women and not men. Exactly, that's the madness we're in. They're polarized because I don't know if you know Finn. I'm sorry, y'all might not know, but it's the two main characters, the two guys. They were upset that it wasn't those two guys.
What?
Because I guess if it shows the men, it'll be more more powerful, more representation, right? So this is the Twitter argument I'm reading. I'm expecting this article to go a whole different direction than what it went in, right? But that's the madness. But it's all about the representation. And why am I bringing this up right now? Because it groomed us and it's grooming the whole world. Because it was talking about who had censored it or whatever the case may be. But it's all over the world, and we're going to start seeing more so-called representation through Hollywood and through television. Just expect it, all right? So, in today's age, why do you think it's so important that we understand what fornication is as followers of Christ, right? So we're going to get into it. Let's get 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 15. That's 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 15.
First Corinthians chapter 6.
Oh, and I'm sorry. One of the other things we got to keep in mind is who owns Marvel and who owns Star Wars? Disney. Disney, the motors of our children. I still know the words to the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse song, right? Yeah, we all do. But that's a whole different story, right? So let's get 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 15.
1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 15. Know ye not that your bodies are the members of Christ? Shall I then take the members of Christ and make them the members of an harlot?
So as Paul is explaining, like why followers of Christ, why we got to be more understanding of what fornication is and the dangers of it, and how the danger of fornication applies to us now that we're in the new covenant. Go ahead.
God forbid. Why? Know ye not that he which is joined to an harlot is one body? For two, he said, shall be one flesh.
Right, so two shall be one flesh. And we understood that in the law when it comes down to man and woman. But it happens spiritually too. Go ahead.
But he that is joined unto the Lord is one spirit. Flee fornication. Every sin that a man doeth is without the body. But he that committeth fornication sinneth against his own body. Why? Know ye not that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, which is in you, which ye have of the Most High, and ye are not of your own?
Right, so it says, know ye not that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit, which is in you. But remember, the Holy Spirit won't dwell in the body that's subject to sin. Go ahead, next verse.
Verse 20.
1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 20. Go ahead.
For ye are bought with a price.
For ye are bought with a price. And what's that price? Right, Yeshua, but what about him though? His blood, right? Go ahead.
Therefore glorify the Most High in your body and in your spirit, which are God's.
Right, so let's get the commentary.
Paul wrote and commanded us to flee fornication, emphasizing the importance and urgency of doing so.
Right, the urgency, go ahead.
Not only do we defile our temple, which is where the Holy Spirit is supposed to dwell, but being in fornication, we pollute and defile the whole body of Christ by making it the body of a harlot.
Right, so this is where more of that individualism narrative starts to lose its sway once we understand this. Because then we'll understand that, hey, you know, I'm part of a body, I'm part of a family, I'm part of a community, and my actions, my decisions will affect that. They will affect that. But when here in America, hey, you're an individual, you can live your life. You can fornicate with whoever, because it's your prerogative. And you have the authority, since you're an individual, to do what you please. And can't nobody tell you anything because you're an individual and you validate your own self. And that's for anything. That's for anything. And one thing I forgot to mention too, because it's like, I was also reading earlier this week an article about the effects of television on the black community. How black folks, this might have changed because now we got the internet and streaming services now. But in the late 2000s, where you get like 09, 2010 and stuff like that, black people watch 70 to 80 hours of television a week. That's more than a full-time job. So how do you even fit those hours of television in? And not only that though, it was twice as more, I forget the numbers, but it's twice as more hair commercials, food commercials, twice as more commercials, period, during the hours of, you know, television that black people watch more than, you know, your main, what is called primetime television. So why am I bringing that up? Because also one of the main things, what's always sold in America? They manipulate and exploit your desires and your pleasure. And they always got somebody, a woman up there with hair blowing in the wind. You know, they create these fake scenes.
Slow motion. Yeah,
slow motion, right. The Victoria's Secret ads, or it could be a food commercial and they know how to pervert that, right?
A car wash commercial.
A car wash commercial, and everything they know how to pervert it. Yes, sir.
You notice the Christmas commercials.
Yeah.
Saturated with Israelites.
He said Christmas commercials are saturated with Israelites. That's true.
And the community can't even afford Christmas.
We can't afford Christmas, but yet we know how to spend $8 billion a year? No, not 8 billion. Yeah, 8 billion a year. Either 8 million or 8 billion a year on Christmas. We can't afford it, but that's how much you spend on Christmas every year. That's a whole different story. Christmas alone,
You need
and
a
that,
commercial job. This is
right.
the time to get it.
But we're gonna stay on track because I could go on around about Christmas. So go ahead, Art.
We have to always keep in mind that not only do our actions affect the things that happen in our lives, but can affect and have a great impact on those who are among us in the church.
Right, so no more individualism. It might be hard when you're growing up this way, but once you start realizing like, okay, it's a different mindset that we can have other than what the mindset Babylon taught us. Go ahead.
The devil knows and understands,
Right. The devil knows this and understands this. Go ahead, what it's about to say.
and this is why he looks at the church as a primary target to attack and cause fornication to take place within.
Right, so believe it or not, fornication will happen the most in the church. Believe it or not. Individualism and fornication will happen most in the church. So, another question, is fornication limited to just the physical? Especially when it comes down to Israel. Nope. Right. Let's get it. Exodus chapter 20, verse 1. Then we'll go through each set of scriptures and then do our prayer.
Exodus chapter 20, verse 1. And the Most High spake all these words, saying, I am the Most High thy power, which hath brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Most High thy power, am a jealous power, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generations of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me, and keep my commandments.
All right, let's go over to the Apocrypha. You got 14 books. That was part of the original translation of the King James 1611 Bible. So we're going to go over to the Apocrypha. We're going to go to Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 14, verse 8.
Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 14, verse 8. But that which is made with hands is cursed, as well as he that made it.
Right, so not only the idol is cursed, but he that made it. Go ahead.
He, because he made it, and it, because being corruptible, it is called God. For the ungodly and his unrighteousness, for the ungodly and his ungodliness are both alike hateful unto the Most High. For that which is made shall be punished together with him that made it. Therefore, even unto the idols of the Gentiles shall there be a visitation, because in the creature of the Most High they are become an abomination, and stumbling blocks to the souls of men, and a snare to the feet of the unwise. For the devising of idols was the beginning of spiritual fornication.
Right, so that's real key. It says, for the devising of idols was the beginning of spiritual fornication. Go ahead.
And the invention of them, the corruption of life. For neither were they from the beginning, neither shall they be forever.
Right, so they weren't there in the beginning with the creation, the Most High was. And they won't be there in the end. Go ahead.
For by the vain glory of men they entered into the world.
Right, the vainglory, the rebelliousness of men, that's how they entered the world. Go ahead.
And therefore shall they come shortly to an end.
Right, so let's get the commentary, and then after this, we'll get a prayer.
In the law the Most High forbade Israel from making and worshiping idols, and that he should be the only power that they should serve.
Right, so the Most High was the only power or the only God that Israel was supposed to serve. Go ahead.
Oftentimes, this covenant that was made between the Creator and Israel is symbolized as a marriage.
Right, so keep that in mind because we're going to touch on this marriage aspect a little bit later in the lesson. Go ahead.
And any time that any other God was worshipped, and there was the devising of idols, it would be fornication on the spiritual side. So when we talk about fornication, it is much deeper than just unlawful sexual acts. Some people may say that they don't deal with idolatry because they don't own any idols.
Right. So it's real easy to say, well, I'm not an idolater. I don't have, a 6-pointed star, or I don't have any African little statues. I don't have any figures going on. I don't have the, what is it going on by my house? It's ridiculous. People got shrines. In Issachar neighborhood, it's shrines in front of the house, right? But you might say, I don't have this. I don't have the candles. I don't have the Mary. I don't have the Jesus, all this stuff, right? But read the rest of that sentence.
But let's take a look and see if there's a deeper understanding on the spiritual side of things when it comes to idolatry.
Right. So let's go ahead and pray and we'll revisit this. And I heard a little person back there reciting. Who was that? Oh, okay. All praises. All right, you can read that the second half of that sentence when we're starting at but.
But let's take a look and see if there is a deeper understanding or on the spiritual side of things when it comes to idolatry.
Right. So this is what we got to ask ourselves: is idol worship, keyword is idol worship, the same thing? I mean, is it just idol worship when it comes down to what you call fornication and spiritual idolatry? Because not just idol worship, there's something else. So let's get it 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 22. And this is like the staple of our people. Because it is not just idol worship that leads to idolatry, to spiritual idolatry and spiritual fornication. It's another aspect to it too. That's such a daily, what you call a daily trait that just goes under the radar for us. That's the scary thing about it. So we got 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 22.
1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 22. And Samuel said, had the Most High as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Most High?
Right, so it says, have the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices, as in obeying the voice of the Lord. So what it's saying is, does he have the same amount of delight or joy over somebody who's sacrificing versus somebody who's obeying him? Is it the same amount of joy? Nope. Go ahead.
Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice.
Answer it right there. To obey is better than sacrifice. Go ahead.
And to hearken than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft.
For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, but what comes next?
And stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry.
So stubbornness is as idolatry. Go ahead.
Because thou hast rejected the word of the Lord, and has also rejected thee. He hath also rejected thee from being king. And Samuel said, and Saul said unto Samuel, I have sinned, for I have transgressed the commandment of the Lord and thy words, because I feared the people and obeyed their voice.
Right, and Sirach, that scripture in Sirach just came to my mind. Let me get it. Because this happens a lot too. Where you fear man more than the Most High. And that's what happens when you find yourself in a compromising situation. That's when the person's true character comes out. So it's Sirach 4 and 21. It says, for there is a shame that bringeth sin, and there is a shame which is glory and grace. So you might just have to look shameful in the eyes of man if it's going to save your soul. Right? We finished with Samuel? Okay, go ahead.
1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 25. Now therefore, I pray thee, pardon my sin, and turn again with me, that I may worship the Most High. And Samuel said unto Saul, I will not return with thee, for thou hast rejected the word of the Most High, and the Lord hath rejected thee from being king over Israel.
Right, so Samuel, the man who just told him what rebellion and stubbornness is, there's no way he's going to listen to Saul and say, yeah, okay, I'll still go with you. He's like, no, you done committed a high treason that's equal to idolatry and witchcraft. So let's go over to 1 Corinthians 10 and 14. The name of the lesson is Fleeing Fornication, and we're going to 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 14. One quick scripture. You go ahead and read it.
1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 14. Wherefore, my dearly beloved, flee from idolatry.
Right, and that's New Testament. That's Paul speaking. Flee from idolatry. But now we know that it's not just the statues, the pictures, the paintings. It's also the rebellion or the stubbornness. Go ahead with the commentary.
The Most High gave us laws, statutes, and commandments. When we operate in the spirit of stubbornness by transgressing His commandments, doing what is that we want to do, we become spiritual idolaters. The fact that iniquity results from transgression of the law.
Right. So it says when we operate in the spirit of stubbornness, being an individual, right, by transgressing His commandments, doing what it is that we want to do to become spiritual, we become spiritual idolaters. So we get so focused on what we want to do and be stubborn, we become a spiritual idolater. Go ahead.
The fact that iniquity results from transgression of the law.
And it goes along with the lesson we did months back. How the I forget what the lesson was, but the commentary was saying how we tend to try to negotiate with the Most High. And you know, the Sirach says that pride is the beginning of sin when one departs from his God or his maker. Right? So it's the same thing, because where there's sin, there's pride. And it's like where sin is that decision time. And pride will come in to make you commit the act. And stubbornness will creep in to make you commit the act. You can either, and this is real, right? A real demonstration. You can either click or not click. Right? And y'all know what I mean.
Yes, sir.
You either click or not click. Or you can still click and click on the X at the top right corner. And slam this thing down and run away from him. Go ahead, Adam.
The fact that iniquity results from transgression of the law, anytime we sin, we are fornicating against the Most High. With that being said, we see that fleeing fornication is much deeper than unrighteous sexual relations, and idolatry is much deeper than having idols in your possession. We must flee from and abstain from all manners of sin, to not be in fornication against our Father.
Right, and speaking of clicking, right, because I'm going to bring out some numbers on clicking later. And that's why we got to protect our children, because now we got space-age technology in our palms. Because before we could monitor computer time, right, now they got phones. And the thing about the phones, or just Google period, what's Google? It's a search database. So they might hear a word that they heard from an ad, or a word that, you know, they hear from a friend or a family member or whatever. They can figure it out now. They can just type it in. Matter of fact, they don't even have to type it in. They just do voice. I was tripped out. Zany sent Malak a text message, and I was like, I asked my wife, I was like, how did she text that? She spoke it. Right? So that's just the reality we live in now, and we gotta protect the children. We gotta protect the children. Go ahead, Art.
Fleeing from idolatry and the sinful ways of Babylon is the first step in the fleeing Babylon process. And when we talk about fleeing, this should be our primary focus, not on physical migrating.
Right, so the primary focus should be the spiritual and mental first. So, excuse me. So one more thing to think about then. If fornication also has a spiritual, avenue, if you will, is adultery any different? Because adultery, this is what I said, keep in mind about the man and woman and the husband and the marriage. Because adultery, fornication, the laws of fornication don't always apply to a man and woman that's married. You all understand that, right? Because we went over there in the baptism class in the law. I think y'all might have touched on that if you had time. But adultery is a whole different thing within that realm of unlawful sexual acts. Everybody understand that? Right? Because a man can fornicate and not be married. Or you can be married and then that's when it's coming down to adultery. Go ahead, Ike. We had, we starting at Exodus 20 and 14. And this real script, so just, real quick, just read that.
Exodus 20 and 14, thou shalt not commit adultery.
Right, thou shalt not commit adultery. We read that every week in the law when Officer Picard comes up. So we're gonna get some meat. Quite a few scriptures to go through, touching on the same thing, the same topic of of adultery. We're gonna start off with Leviticus chapter 20, verse 10.
Leviticus chapter 20, verse 10. And the man that committed adultery with another man's wife, even he that committed adultery with his neighbor's wife, the adulterer and the adulteress shall surely be put to death. And the man that lied with his father's wife hath uncovered his father's nakedness. Both of them shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them. And if a man lie with his daughter-in-law, both of them shall surely be put to death. They have wrought fornication, so like a confusion. Their blood shall be upon them.
Right, so let's go to Proverbs chapter 6, verse 32. And you see, like these are the things, this is how we protect our children too. We teach these principles to our children and establish these things in the house. It's for some of us, it's gonna be harder than others. Some of us might be easier than others. Just depending on where we're at with our walk and where we're at with things and our understanding and setting up different routines in the household and things like that. But sometimes, a lot of times, we're kind of lost, and that's not even a word, that's not even like an insult, because we just kind of get like, all right, where do we go from here after we learn all this stuff? What's the practical approach to start teaching our children things, right? So when real life situations do come up, you can use the scriptures and the lessons from the scriptures now, right? So we got Proverbs 6 and 32.
Proverbs chapter 6, verse 32. But whoso committeth adultery with a woman lacketh understanding. He that doeth it destroyeth his own soul.
And this is how it comes up in real life, right? Proverbs 6 and 32 says, but whoso committeth adultery with a woman lacketh understanding. He that doeth it destroyeth his own soul. Guess what? That's probably 90% of television right there. That's every Tyler Perry movie. And it's a so-called love story. The woman, she feels the man isn't paying her attention anymore. They got married young. The man, he's married, but he found out he made a mistake choosing the wrong mate, and he got dreams and aspirations. She's holding him down. These two meet in the park. And it's a love story. No, it's not. It's abomination. It's adultery. You can read about it in Proverbs 6 and 32. Go ahead, Art.
Verse 33. A wound and dishonor shall he get, and his reproach shall not be wiped away.
Right, so let's get the New Testament. Let's get Matthew 5 and 27. And you got to catch it too, because I'm gonna stick on movies just simply because it's just easy with television and movies, because that's how Babylon programs us. But you'll be so invested with these characters and these storylines, you'll feel more sorry for them than your own family, right? Go ahead.
Matthew chapter 5, verse 27. Ye have heard that it was said by them of old time.
So what does that mean, of old time? Yeah, the Old Testament, the Old Covenant. Yep, go ahead.
Thou shalt not commit adultery.
Thou shalt not commit adultery. So it was said, right? We all knew that was the law, that was the guideline, not to commit adultery. But go ahead to the next verse.
But I say unto you,
So under the new covenant, this is the new understanding. Go ahead.
that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust it after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart.
Right. And that's the new understanding, because things, your behavior is triggered by your thoughts. Right? So it's all about your heart now and where your mind is at. And if you're, you got the thoughts and the motivation, you got to attack that first and apply the law to that first, not apply the law to the end result. No, it's a new way now. So let's get James 4:4.
James chapter 4, verse 4. Ye adulterers and adulteresses, know ye not that the friendship of this world is enmity with the Most High? Whosoever therefore will be a friend of the world is the enemy of the Most High.
All right, let's get Matthew 16:4. And that's real deep too. Know ye not that the friendship of this world is enmity with the Most High? And this is how you end up being friends with the world on a very subtle way through the programming of media and things like that. And that will come out later. Got some ideas for some lessons about, TV, the media, capitalism, all that, how it affects our mind and our behavior, and how it just keeps the curses going. But let's get Matthew 16:4.
Matthew 16:4. A wicked and adulterous generation seeketh after a sign, and there shall no sign be given unto it, but the sign of the prophet Jonah. And he left them and departed.
Now that we know the mindset of sin, we can kind of break this scripture down in a different way now, so it can apply to us in a different way now. A wicked and adulterous generation seeketh after a sign, and there shall no sign be given unto it but the sign of the prophet Jonas. Because what do we read? That leads to spiritual idolatry and spiritual fornication, stubbornness and rebellion. And only a rebellious nation will seek proof or seek a sign, because you're always looking for the scapegoat, because you're always looking for ways to justify your behavior and justify your decisions. If God ain't coming down to talk to us right now, why should I correct my behavior? That's why when it says in 2 Peter, in these last days will be scoffers, because they're the ones that are swayed by their lust. They're too much in their lust, too much in their sin. They can't accept correction because they need a sign first. They need a sign to be justified. They need a sign to justify why they need to, convert. And we get that on a smaller level of street preaching. A person will sit there with us for an hour. And he know all type of stuff. Sit there and listen and agree with us, even add to the conversation, and might even help us break something down with a person that comes up. But when that one sin comes up and we show them something in the Bible, game over. So let's get Wisdom of Solomon chapter 3, verse 13. We're in the name of the lesson is fleeing fornication, and we're about halfway through. And we're going to Wisdom of Solomon back in the Apocrypha. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 3, verse 13.
Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 3, verse 13. Their offspring is cursed. Wherefore, blessed is the barren that is undefiled, which hath not known the sinful bed. She shall have fruit in the visitation of souls. And blessed is the eunuch, which with his hands hath wrought no iniquity, nor imagined wicked things against the Most High.
Right, so what is it saying right here? These are two different people, man and woman, who physically cannot have children. But they're blessed because they didn't defile themselves in the wicked bed. Because children are supposed to be a wonderful thing, a blessed thing. But if you have a horde of wicked children, what value is that to the people? To humanity, it will. So that's why the eunuch or the barren womb will be more blessed than the wicked person who defile themselves in the wicked bed. Go ahead.
For unto him shall be given the special gift of faith, and an inheritance in the temple of the Most High, more acceptable to his mind. For glorious is the fruit of good labors, and the root of wisdom shall never fall away. As for the children of adulterers, they shall not come to their perfection, and the seed of an unrighteous bed shall be rooted out.
Right, and this just came to mind. We all know it. We all have seen it. It's a crying shame. It is a shame. And we could say that it's the curses. We could say it's the man. We could say it's the judicial system. But it's just, no, it's the family. How all the sons, all the uncles are in jail. But then when you look at the parents and see their lifestyle, you understand why. When you look at the parents, we all know the families where all the brothers was the drug dealers, the gang bangers, they in jail, the cousins are in jail, the mother's brothers and uncles and cousins are in jail, the father's brothers, uncles and cousins are in jail, everybody's in jail. Everybody was a terror to the neighborhood. Now, I'm not talking about if you got these people that's in jail. That's a whole different story. But you know, people was just, the whole family just notorious and was a terror to the neighborhood. Go ahead.
Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 3, verse 17. For though they live long, yet shall be nothing regarded, and their last age shall be without honor. Or if they die quickly, they have no hope. Neither come forth in the days of trial, for horrible is the end of the unrighteous generation.
Right, so let's get the commentary.
Just like idolatry and fornication, adultery is much deeper than the physical act and has to be understood on a higher spiritual level. The Most High made a covenant with Israel, and by breaking that covenant, it then becomes adultery. When Christ made mention of that the generation that we are in now would be a wicked and adulterous generation, he wasn't just speaking about the baby daddy, baby mama culture that the minority community in Babylon glorifies, but that this generation would be similar to the evil generation that existed during the times of Noah. By making ourselves friends with the world, we join in the league with all of the filthy customs and practices that the Messiah hates and calls abominations.
Right. And once again, like we said earlier, when the, what is it? I forget again. The inmate, what is it?
Oh, what is it? Inmates run.
When the inmates run the asylum, that's what we got. So we're gonna switch gears. We got a few articles. The first one is, why is adultery on the rise? So we're switching gears up, so we got a little bit of reading, but just kind of keep your ears close and open. So the title of this article is why is adultery on the rise, and it's beliefnet.com. So obviously this is a faith-based website. Go ahead.
Despite these challenges, it appears that 2005 rates were around 22%, while 2016 survey suggests it's now closer than 33%.
Right, so obviously if it says, while 2016 survey suggests it's now closer, that means it's probably a little bit older article, and 33%. Now, this is adultery we're talking about, right? 33% in 2016. I don't know what it's like now, because what done happened since 2016? The rise of Snapchat, right? The rise of Instagram, the rise of Facebook. Well, I mean, Facebook was already there, but it's just been more ballooned, right? It's even more huge. It's just everything. Everybody's more connected. Everybody got more ways to stay connected now and show themselves and proclaim themselves to the world. And, you know, where what you call desire can be fulfilled. Go ahead.
Men are more likely to commit adultery than women, but the gap is slowly closing. One reason for these increasing rate is because the way marriage is looked at has changed quite a bit from the last few decades. Marriage is no longer considered the permanent, sacred institution that it once was. Today, there are increased incidents of premarital sex, cohabitation, divorce, separation, remarriage, blended families, single parenthood, and individualistic social values and expectations.
Right, and that's one of the key ones that'll destroy a family. Individualistic social values and expectations. That's why when Elder Gabar did the marriage class, he said it's very important for man and woman to make sure they have the same values, right? Without it, moral values is one thing, but if you got individualistic social values and expectations, you're going to be destroyed. You'll be married for a year, if that. And to show you how marriage just doesn't have the the strength that it used to have, or the happiness that it used to have. When I was telling people I know that I was getting married, this man who I trusted and looked up to, mind you, and I ain't seen him since. He looked, and he's an older man. He looked down, then he looked back at me and he was like, man, well, I hope it works out for you. I was like, what? You know what I'm saying? I was like, okay, I'll write you off, right? And then another guy who's a friend of the family, I was like, hey man, you know, I'm getting married, you know, definitely you invited to the wedding, man. Man, come. He's my brother's friend. He paused again. That's the thing, they pause, right? He paused, and he was like, you know, that's for life, right? I was like, okay, all right. Now, of course, one person's experience can't just be the, you know, because I don't want to be biased like that, but I think we know how the world views marriage, right? What's up? Oh, I thought somebody had something. So go ahead.
This leads to overall increase in adultery.
Right. All right, next paragraph.
In general, overall changes in society feed into the reason why infidelity is on the rise.
Right, the changes in society. Go ahead.
Today, it is easier than ever to get on social media and contact old flings.
Right, it's easy. You can just contact an old fling, an old flame. Go ahead.
Despite being in a monogamous relationship, the easy access to communicate with others, decreased rate of religion, overall lack of respect for marriage, and
that's the word I was looking for. Marriage doesn't have the respect it used to have. Go ahead.
And an increase in individual focus culture are just a few of the many reasons this change has happened. Your marriage doesn't have to end in this pain, though. Open communication, trust, and compatibility will help you keep your own marriage away from destruction.
Right. And like I said before, when it comes down to marriage, I don't even know too many married people, like people I grew up with. And I don't even know if they plan on getting married. And that's something to think about your own self. Like, just do a little, what you call it, an inventory on how many people you know that's married, or even seem like they trying to get married. The numbers are low. You got men that's, Elder touched on this, you got men that's 40, 50 years old who show no sign of ever wanting to get married. That's a problem, that's an issue. Now, if you're 40, 50 and not married, that's not, if you want to get married, that's a whole different story. But you got men who are 40, 50 years old, almost 60, who are perfectly fine. Like, what are you doing? What purpose are you serving to the community? Zero. And that's just real. Let's get Leviticus chapter 20, verse 13.
Leviticus chapter 20, verse 13. If a man also...
Yeah, like I said, we're switching gears. We're going to have, it's an article, then a scripture to kind of edify the article. So get used to article, scripture. Go ahead.
Leviticus chapter 20, verse 13. If a man also lie with mankind as he lies with a woman, both of them have committed an abomination.
So what does that mean? If a man also lie with mankind as he lies with a woman, what does that mean? What are we going into? Right, come. All right, go ahead.
They shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them. And if a man take a wife and her mother, it is wickedness.
Right, and that was, I don't know if there's still a thing, but I remember that was a thing growing up, where men would take pride in being with the mother and the girl. Yep, that is a real thing. The wickedness that's in our people. Go ahead.
They shall be burnt with fire, both he and they.
And to show you the wickedness, I had an older man, I was like 13. This is the wisdom I'm getting from my older man at the time. This is why I say you gotta protect your children. Nothing against my parents, but it was a guy that was a friend of the family, and shortly he was never, I didn't see him no more. And now that I'm older, I understand why. But me and him are in the backyard, he's talking to me, and it was a girl I liked or whatever. And I'm just telling him the situation with him, me and the mother, and I'm 13, mind you. And he's like, oh, well, the mother probably like you too. And he was like, you should go ahead and try to, I'm like, what? I got enough sense at 13 to know, like, this ain't right. Exactly. You're telling a 13-year-old this. So that's what I'm saying, like, where our older men, it was, something got messed up there. Something got messed up where the older men, I don't know. Something got messed up there, where the men just weren't able to teach the younger men the right way. We see it all the time, and we try to, as younger men, we try to have respect at the same time. You're 50, you're 60. It ain't nothing in the game. It's just you ain't in this paradigm at all. 50, 60, and you're out, and your whole aspiration in life is to gather some change for the next bottle. Like, what can you teach the young men? But you still gotta, that's the thing, it's a touchy situation, because you still gotta be able to respect your elders. But at the same time, man, all you can tell me is what not to do. You have no solid plan of what to tell me what to do. It's a big difference. It's a big difference. And that's how a nation is empowered. When you can do more than just to tell somebody what not to do, but tell them what to do. Go ahead, Art.
that there be no wickedness among you.
All right, so we got the next article. And these scriptures line up with this next article.
U.S. Supreme Court ruled gay marriage is legal nationwide. The U.S. Supreme Court has ruled the same-sex marriage is a legal right across the United States.
Right, and you would think that the Supreme Court would have more pressing issues, like maybe the defense of the country or the distribution of wealth, saving communities, helping communities, things like that. This is what they're worried about, so go ahead.
It means that 14 states with bans on same-sex marriage will no longer be able to enforce them. Justice Anthony Kennedy wrote that the plaintiff asked for equal dignity in the eyes of the law. The Constitution grants them that right. President Barack Obama.
Right. President Barack Obama said the ruling was a what?
A victory for America.
Right. So, legalizing gay marriage across the nation was a victory for America. That's this man's words. That's his viewpoint. And that's the viewpoint of those folks who was on Twitter about Star Wars. It was a victory for them. It was. Star Wars was a victory for them. Not because Luke Skywalker finally came back and this whole thing and their childhood movie came back. No, it was a victory because of what happened at the end. Let's get Leviticus 20 and 15.
Leviticus chapter 20, verse 15. And if a man lie with a beast, he shall,
An animal, right?
he shall surely be put to death, and ye shall slay the beast.
And if you think that's far-fetched, it's not. Because guess what? A lot of rituals in the old ancient societies, that was part of their customs, doing ceremonies and things like that. Go ahead.
Leviticus 20 and 16. And if a man, and if a woman approach unto any beast, and lie down thereto, thou shalt kill the woman and the beast, and they shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them.
All right, so let's get the title of this one. If your stomach will allow.
All the U.S. states where bestiality is legal.
It's still legal.
It's still legal.
Still.
It's still legal.
All the U.S. states where bestiality is still legal.
Mm-hmm.
If you thought America couldn't get any weirder at the moment, you should probably know that the Ohio Senate has only just gotten around to voting through a bill banning bestiality. But it still has to go through more lawmakers before it becomes law.
Why does it have to go to lawmakers? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, that it's one of the 10 states where bestiality currently isn't illegal.
Isn't illegal. So the others where bestiality is not legal, here's the list.
The others are Hawaii, Kentucky, Nevada, New Mexico, Ohio, Texas, Vermont, West Virginia, and Wyoming, and the District of Columbia, according to Michigan State University College of Law. The seriousness of the crime also varies in the state where it has been outlawed. Some see it as a misdemeanor, and others class it as a felony. Some states also require the defendant to undergo physical, psychological assessments and counseling. For instance, or prohibit the perpetrator from owning or living with animals.
Now you know there's a problem where the state got to come in to regulate whether you can live with animals or not. You got a problem. You have a problem. These are the ones that's where it's still legal. Yep. Now, remember I said some statistics on clicks, right? Now, this was back in 2013. I don't know what it is now. But the number one click thing back in 2013 was sites that had pedophilia on it. And the number two click was sites that had bestiality on it. How is that even possible? How is that even possible? That's the mindset. But yet, and the crazy thing about it is, how can I say this? This could be the mailman. This could be the first grade teacher. This could be your neighbor. You know what I'm saying? That's just the reality of it. Now go ahead with the commentary.
While sodomy and bestiality are things that haven't existed on a high level in the minority communities in the past, these two abominations are on the rise amongst minorities here in these last days.
Right, so it's actually, sodomy and bestiality in the past weren't a thing within our communities, within the minority communities, but it's starting to get on the rise. Go ahead.
Here in these last days, as our community continue to promote and push this culture, the fact that sodomy has been legislated as lawful in all 50 states under American law, and that bestiality is legal in some states, give us great insight that America, being modern day Babylon, Sodom and Egypt, to say the least.
Right. Now here's something to ask ourselves, and this could be a very critical thinking exercise, right? Who is more out there, and who's more noticeable with this type of lifestyle? Because yeah, we might live in a country where we're a minority, but who's more flamboyant? Who stands out more? Who makes it their business to stand out more? And has it been that way in the past? Let's get it. Let's get Acts chapter 15, verse 17. Because just by default, simply because there's more white people, Caucasian people here in America, more white people, Caucasian people here in Chicago, you might see more. But who do you notice more that makes it to be known that this is who I am? Right. And the crazy thing about it, who gets posterized on the magazines? Who gets what's the word? What's the word I'm trying to think of? When it's an award show, who's on the red carpet? With a dress. No, not him. There's another guy. I forget his name. Right. No. It's a news. He's an anchor, not an anchor guy, but he's in that news entertainment world. But let's get Acts chapter 15, verse 17. I forget his name.
Billy something?
Yeah. If anybody, remember the name, just kind of search it, we can get it up. But let's get Acts chapter 15, verse 17.
Acts chapter 15, verse 17. That the residue of men might seek after the Most High.
That the residue of men. Keyword residue. Remember we went over residue in the lesson a few weeks ago. That the residue of men might seek after the Lord. Go ahead.
And all the Gentiles, upon whom my name is called, said the Most High, who doeth all these things. Known unto the Most High are all his works from the beginning of the world. Wherefore my sentence is, that we trouble not them, which from among the Gentiles are turned to the Most High, but that we write unto them, that they abstain from pollution of idols, and from fornication, and from things strangled, and from blood.
Right, so the order that the disciples, were the apostles at this time, what they decided with the Gentiles is just to abstain from pollutions of idols, from fornication, and from things strangled, and from blood. Right? But more measures had to be taken with Israel. So let's get 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 1.
First Corinthians chapter 5, verse 1. It is reported commonly that there is fornication among you.
Right, so it's reported commonly that there's fornication among you. Go ahead.
And such fornication as is not so much as named among the Gentiles.
So the type of fornication that's been named among you isn't even named among the Gentiles. Go ahead.
That one should have his father's wife. And ye are puffed up, and have not rather mourned, that he that had done this deed might be taken away from among you.
Oh, that's him. Yeah, we know he did it, but hey, that's just him, you know. Go ahead.
For I verily, as absent in body, but present in spirit, have judged already, as though I were present, concerning him that had so done this deed. In the name of our Lord Yeshua Christ, when we are gathered together in my spirit with the power of our Lord Yeshua Christ, to deliver such an one unto Satan for the destruction of the flesh, that the spirit may be saved in the day of the Lord Yeshua. Your glorying is not good. Know ye not that a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump?
Right. So basically he's saying like this type of sin cannot be among the body of Christ. It might just be, you know, one, two, or a group of people out of a large group, but a little leaven leaven the whole lump. So you can't bat your eye at something. Like, oh, that's just him. It's just one situation. Go ahead with the commentary.
Sodomy, bestiality, adultery, fornication, and idolatry were all Gentile practices and custom from the very beginning of the creation of men.
Right, so these were Gentile practices, but where's it going? Go ahead.
However, Israel did not take heed to the Most High's law and command, not only to learn and follow after the ways of the Gentiles. Israel has far exceeded.
Go ahead.
These abominable acts on a greater level than the Gentiles could ever do it or have done. Just notice how flamboyant men in drag and dresses is being pushed in Hollywood harder by so-called black men than any other race, because nobody does it better than Israel, and that includes wickedness too.
Right. So why is it that we are, and I hate to say we, but why is it that, you know, Judah is more flamboyant, or our people are more flamboyant? Who do you think, and this is a good comparison between the Gentiles and Israel, who will be more notorious? The person who doesn't know any better, or the person who's rebellious? The person who's rebellious, because the rebellious person got to put their rebellion on display and make it a show for the world. The people who didn't know any better, the Gentiles, the apostles just said, hey, just make sure they abstain from this. Let them come into the fold and understand the ways of the Most High. Time will bring them on, you know. But as far as Israel, hey, that rebellious nature, that stubborn nature. So it's just like the same thing. Like we all grew up with one in high school. I remember growing up in my freshman year, the trench coat mafia. Right across my locker, it was 4 big tall guys dressed up in trench coats and high boots, combat boots. I'm like, y'all gonna let this go on? But there was rebellion, right? The rebelliousness. Or even, you know, the how other kids do it, the rebellion. They're gonna make it be known. So the rebellion, that's, that rebellious spirit will make the wickedness be even more. So the black men always gonna be more flamboyant. So let's get Revelation chapter 2, verse 17. And the brother said a key point, and that's a whole nother topic. A workshop to be done on that. It's how we always want and desire to be accepted. So when you want to and desire to be accepted, of course, you're gonna go all out. Right? But before we get this particular scripture, we gotta ask if fornication is gender specific. No, it's not. Because it's a special form of fornication, spiritual fornication that's specific to women. And the sisters gotta watch out for this. So let's get Revelation chapter 2, verse 17.
Revelation chapter 2, verse 17. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit said unto the churches. To him that overcometh will I give to eat of the hidden manna, and I will give him a white stone, and in the stone a new name written, which no man knoweth, saving he that receiveth. And unto the angel of the church of Thyatira write, these things said the Son of the Most High, who had his eyes like unto a flame of fire, and his feet like fine brass. I know thy works, and charity, and service, and faith, and thy patience, and thy works, and at the last to be more than the first. Notwithstanding, I have a few things against thee.
Right, so notwithstanding, go ahead.
Because thou sufferest that woman Jezebel.
Right, that suffers meaning you. Anybody want to try to explain what suffers mean in that context? Go ahead.
To allow.
Perfect example, to allow. Go ahead.
Because thou sufferest that woman Jezebel, which called herself a prophetess, to teach and to seduce the servants to commit, my servants, to commit fornication, and to eat things sacrificed unto idols. And I gave her space to repent of her fornication, and she repented not. Behold, I will cast her into a bed, and them that commit adultery with her into great tribulation, except they repent of their deeds. And I will kill her children with death. And all the churches shall know that I am he which searches the reins and hearts. And I will give unto every one of you according to your works.
Right. So let's get the commentary.
Sisters have to guard themselves from the spirit of Jezebel,
because I know in this world, because the spirit of Jezebel is deep. And what she was famous for is deep, because I'm pretty sure I'm not alone, because I've had conversations with people before, but I grew up thinking the spirit of Jezebel was just, I thought Jezebel was an adulterous woman. But no, the Bible narrative explains what Jezebel really is. Go ahead. So we'll start off with the commentary from the top.
Sisters have to guard themselves from the spirit of Jezebel, which is the spirit of setting themselves up on high prominent figures over the church, usurping the authority of men.
And when the brother reads this, picture in your mind the spirit that our sisters operating in. The celebrities, not just the celebrities, but the models. Because you got this new thing called the Instagram model. Like, what is that? Right? Using their power, so-called social power, to sway men and get power over men. Because you got to remember, this is a very, what you call power structure type society we live in, where dominance is the key. Who could dominate the other? And the women have learned that Jezebel spirit here in Babylon to dominate men. That's what happened. Go ahead.
By doing so, it is not only fornication against the Most High, but then will cause other people under these women authoritarian authoritarians to commit fornication and be led astray also.
Right, so not only them, but they will cause, their influence will cause the others to go astray. Go ahead.
Other characteristics of the spirit of Jezebel are women who are defiant toward their husbands, women who are despisers of dominion and authority of leadership of the church, and women who manipulate men to do their evil.
Right, women who manipulate men to do their evil, and that's what Jezebel was notorious for. Women who manipulate men to do their evil. And there's been plenty of examples, like in TV shows and movies, how the woman, the wife of a powerful man really has the sway. And she'll get in his ear. Off what everybody said. Matter of fact, Shakespeare did a play on that. I forget which one it is. Hamlet. Right?
The Greek and Romans too.
The Greek and Romans. Go ahead.
And let's not get it twisted. There are male Jezebel too.
So let's get the next set of scriptures. And this is going to go into, this is what I was talking about, that period where just stay tuned in, because we got some history, some lengthy scriptures going on. But this is so we can get a better idea of what our fornication looked like as a people, the spiritual fornication, and what that judgment was. So go ahead, we're going at 2 Chronicles chapter 21, verse 11.
Second Chronicles chapter 21, verse 11. Moreover, he made high places in the mountains of Judah, and caused the inhabitants of Jerusalem to commit fornication, and compelled Judah thereto.
So, high places, what does that mean?
Temples or worship.
Come on, the places where they worship at, yep, the high places, yep. Verse 12.
Verse 12. And there came a writing to him from Elijah the prophet, saying, Thus said the Most High Power of David thy father, because thou hast not walked in the ways of Jehoshaphat thy father, nor in the ways of Asa, king of Judah, but hast walked in the way of the kings of Israel, has made Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem to go a-whoring, like to the whoredoms of the house of Ahab.
Who's Ahab? The husband of who? Jezebel. Yeah, go ahead.
And also hast slain thy brethren in thy father's house, which were better than thyself. Behold, with a great plague will the Most High smite thy people, and thy children, and thy wives, and all thy goods. And thou shalt have great sickness by disease of the bowels, until thy bowels fall out by reason of the sickness day by day.
All right, so let's get Ezekiel chapter 16, verse 15. This is the portion with some lengthy reading, so stay tuned in. Ezekiel chapter 16, verse 15.
Ezekiel chapter 16, verse 15. But thou didst trust in thine own beauty, and played the harlot because of thy renown, and pourest out thy fornication on everyone that passeth by. His it was. And of thy garments thou didst take, and deckest thy high places with diverse colors, and played the harlot thereupon.
Right, so now it's talking about how Israel committed the act of fornication, spiritual idolatry. Go ahead.
The like things shall not come, neither shall it be so. Verse 17. Thou hast also taken thy fair jewels of my gold and of my silver, which I have given thee, and made to thyself images of men, and didst commit whoredom with them, and took his thigh broidered garment and covered them. And thou hast set mine oil and mine incense before them.
Right, because all these things that the Most High is naming were meant to be doing the ministry of the sanctuary, the priestly orders. Go ahead. But they got perverted. Go ahead.
Verse 19. My meat also which I gave thee.
And perverted meaning because they was being used to service other gods. Go ahead.
Verse 19. My meat also which I gave thee, fine flour and oil and honey, wherewith I fed thee, thou hast even set it before them for a sweet savor. And thus it was, said the Most High Power. Moreover, thou hast taken thy sons and thy daughters, with whom thou hast borne unto me, and these hast thou sacrificed unto them to be devoured. Is this of thy whoredoms a small is this of thy whoredoms a small matter? That thou hast slain thy children and delivered them to cause them to pass through the fire for them.
Right, so child sacrifice to these gods. And we talked about it before, how we got to be mindful and be more protective of our children. Because we can easily give our children over to other gods unknowingly. Because there was a great babysitter that was created by Babylon called the television. Now there's a lot more babysitters that are more efficient than television now. You got YouTube, you got all this different stuff now. And if you're so-called too busy, you can let that watch your children and occupy your children. Go ahead.
Ezekiel 16 and 22. And in all thine abomination and thy whoredom thou hast not remembered the days of thy youth, when thou wast naked and bare, and was polluted in thy blood. And it came to pass after all thy wickedness, woe, woe unto thee, said the Most High Power. Thou hast also built unto thee an eminent place, and hast made thee an high place in every street. Thou hast built thy high place at every head of the way, and hast made thy beauty to be abhorred.
And it makes sense, because that spirit is still here. It says, thou, verse 24, thou hast built unto thee an eminent place, meaning a more revered, more powerful place, and has made thee in high place in every street. That's why you get 5 churches on the same street. The same spirit is operating. Go ahead.
Verse 25. Thou hast built thy high places at every head of the way, and hast made thy beauty to be abhorred, and hast opened thy feet to everyone that passeth by, and multiplied thy whoredoms. Thou hast also committed fornication with the Egyptians, thy neighbors, great of flesh, and hast increased thy whoredoms, and provoked me to anger. Behold, therefore I have stretched out my hands over thee, and have diminished thine ordinary food, and delivered thee unto the will of them that hate thee, the daughters of the Philistines.
Right, so now coming in the punishment, the judgment, the delivering into the enemies, the hands of the enemies. Go ahead.
Which are ashamed of thy lewd ways. Verse 28. Thou hast played the whoredom also with the Assyrians, because thou wast unsatiable. Yeah, thou hast played the harlot with them, and yet couldst not be satisfied.
Right, and that's the key thing, because remember these spirits, they hunger but they thirst but don't drink, and they hunger and don't eat. And that's the thing, more can never be enough. And that's what Babylon sells us. It sells us more, but guess what? More can never be enough here. Go ahead.
Thou hast moreover multiplied thy fornication in the land of Canaan unto Chaldea, and yet thou wasn't satisfied herewith. How weak is thine heart, said the Most High Power, seeing thou doest all these things, the work of an imperious, whorish woman. Verse 31. And that thou buildest thine eminent place in the head of every way, and makest thy high place in every street, and hast not been as an harlot, and in that thou scornest hire, but as a wife that committed adultery, which taketh strangers instead of her husband, then giveth gifts to all whores.
Right, because it's not that our role was a harlot. We're doing this all as a role as a wife, mind you. And that's the point we got to remember. Go ahead.
But thou givest thy gifts to all thy lovers, and hirest them, that they may come unto thee on every side of thy whoredom. And the contrary is in thee from the other woman in thy whoredom, whereas none followeth thee to commit whoredoms. And in that thou givest a reward, and no reward is given unto thee. Therefore thou art contrary. Wherefore, O harlot, hear the word of the Most High. Thus said the Most High Power, because thy filthiness was poured out, and thy nakedness discovered through thy whoredoms with thy lovers.
And remember, keep this in mind. The nakedness discovered. Thy nakedness discovered. Go ahead.
And let me read that again. Thy nakedness discovers through thy whoredom with thy lovers, and with all the idols of thy abominations, and by the blood of thy children, which thou didst give unto them. Behold, therefore, I will gather all thy lovers with whom thou hast taken pleasure, and all them that thou hast loved, and with all them that thou hast hated. I will even gather them round about against thee, and will discover thy nakedness unto them, that they may see all thy nakedness.
Right. And this is how the scriptures get fulfilled about how we become a proverb and a byword. Because like the brother said a few minutes ago, how we'll strive to be included, what you call assimilationist, integrationist, whatever the word you want to throw around. You want to integrate, you want to assimilate, whatever, and you want to be part of it. But guess what? The Most High turned the script where you coming from a very weak posture, and they don't even respect you. Think about that feeling that you have, and all praises that, will remember I want to put the cart before the horse and be trying to say things. I'll put it to you like this. How do you feel when you go to your supervisor to ask for time off? Do you feel that you're in a weaker posture? Or do you feel you're equals? You know there's a power structure, a power play going on. And that's how you come to that table. It's the same thing here. We come to the table trying to be integrated, trying to be included, but the Most High flipped it. We said, hey, we like Buddha, let me go to your temple. We like yoga, let me hang out at the yoga lounges. We want to drink the same wheatgrass with you. You know what I'm saying? After the yoga class. But you can do all you want. You could take up martial arts and get into the whole philosophy of it. But guess what? The Most High flipped the script where you'll be put in their hands. Go ahead.
Ezekiel 16:38. And I will judge thee as women that break wedlock, and blood are judged. And I will give thee blood and fury and jealousy, and I will also give thee into their hands. And they shall throw down thine eminent place, and shall break down thy high places. They shall strip thee also.
Now,
This how street is.
and you would think that they will respect your high places because your high places are built to serve their gods. Nope. They come down and ransack everything. Go ahead.
They shall strip thee also of thy clothes, and shall take thy fair jewels, and leave thee naked and bare.
Right, and leave thee naked and bare. So now let's get What time is it? We're just going to read a couple of these. We're going to go to Leviticus 18:6, because it's something about how the Most High looks at nakedness when your nakedness is uncovered. Yeah.
In Ezekiel 36, what they do to entertainers and
36 was it? Oh, the verse 36.
and naked in bed, like that's what they do to all.
Yeah, the brother said, if you want to expound on that.
Yeah, the scripture in Ezekiel 36,
16 and 36.
16 and 36 and on down. The whole chapter basically, it almost describes what they do to the entertainers of our people, like the athletes and the actors and actresses, and in the musical industry, where they allow them to excel past a very high level, and then they would just strip them away of everything they had.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep. So let's get Leviticus 18:6.
Leviticus chapter 18, verse 6. None of you shall approach to any that is of near kin to him, to uncover their nakedness. I am the Most High.
Right, and to show you how serious the Most High looks at this, didn't somebody get cursed as a result of this? Who was it? Ham, right. So we're not going to read, you can read on through verse 17. It's going all the different situations where, thou shalt uncover the nakedness of this person or that person. So go down to verse 18 in your notes and you can read that. So go ahead with the commentary.
Terms like whoring, whoredoms, and harlotry are oftentimes used in scripture to describe the fornication nature of Israel, when they would go after the ways of other gods instead of following in the ways of the Most High. The law shows us how sacred a person's nakedness is, and that it was never to be exposed or uncovered. But because of disobedience, the Most High allowed his wife.
Right, because that's one thing that's a shameful thing for a man's wife if her nakedness is uncovered. Go ahead.
But because of disobedience, the Most High allowed his wife, Israel, to have her nakedness uncovered by all the enemy nations but that Israel followed after. Because of this adultery against the Most High, it makes sense to see so-called minorities in the false state that are in today.
Right, and just to get some better understanding on how serious nakedness gets taken in other countries and how quick you'll be labeled a whore, talking about, with the women's side. It was a time in Spain where if a woman was walking by herself, she'll automatically get labeled as a whore. So you never really saw, like, during that revolutionary period, like in the 40s, 50s, 60s, maybe even 30s, no women was walking by themselves. And no groups of women were walking by themselves. They'll always have their family with them or something like that. And to take it even further, in other countries, mainly like Middle Eastern countries, and can't say Asia anymore, because Asia wanted to pattern herself after Babylon. But Middle Eastern countries, if a woman shows her skin, one shoulder, she's labeled a whore. She's outcast from the community. She won't be able to progress at all. She's forever labeled a whore. And that sticks with, that will stay on her. And that'll impede her from being able to marry, that'll bring shame to the family name, everything. But so all that shaming, and that's what the Most High allowed for his wife to go through. Go ahead. Okay. So now let's kind of switch gears. We start to wrap this up, and let's get into some solutions about how we could defend ourselves from fornication and understand what we need to do. So let's get 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 5.
First Corinthians chapter 10, verse 5. But with many of them God was not well pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. Now these things were our examples, that they to the intent we should not lust after evil things, as they also lusted.
Anybody know what this, because we kind of skipped 1 through 4. What's the context of this chapter, these scriptures right now? When we were in the wilderness, right? Remember it was the rebellion in the wilderness? How the Most High had to cast judgment on them? That's what it's speaking of. So it was to be an example for us today and the generations after, to be an example to always look at that and know what not to do. Go ahead.
Verse 7. Neither be idolaters, as were some of them, as it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play.
And what is that? When Aaron built the calf. Go ahead.
Neither let us commit fornication, as some of them committed, and fell in one day 23,000. Neither let us tempt Christ, as some of them also tempted, and were destroyed of serpents. Neither murmur ye, as some of them also murmured, and were destroyed of the destroyer. Now all these things happened unto them for an example, and they are written for our admonition upon whom the ends of the world are come.
Right. And remember in Deuteronomy, the 8th chapter, I want to say like verses 1 through maybe 4 or 5, how it was saying like we were in the wilderness for 40 years to be proven. So that whole 40-year trip going around in a circle was an example for us today. Let's get Jude chapter 1, verse 4.
Jude chapter 1, verse 4. For there are certain men that crept unawares, who were before of old ordained to this condemnation, ungodly men, turning the grace of our power into lasciviousness, and denying the only Lord power and our Lord Yeshua Christ. I will therefore put you in remembrance, though ye once knew this, how that the Most High, having saved the people out of the land of Egypt, afterward destroyed them that believed not. And the angels, which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, he had reserved in everlasting chains under darkness unto the judgment of the great day, even as Sodom and Gomorrah, and the city about them in like manner, having given themselves over to fornication, and going after strange flesh, and set forth for an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire. Likewise also,
right, because before them, there really wasn't what you call knowledge of an eternal judgment, of eternal fire. So the fallen angels, when they committed their act, that was the example they left for us. Go ahead.
Verse 8. Likewise also these filthy dreamers defile the flesh, despise dominion, and speak evil dignities.
All right, go ahead with the commentary. You want to take a sip? Yeah.
During the times before the flood, we know that the sons of the Most High came down from the heavenly realms and fornicated with the daughters of men, which led to precedents of rebellion act being set.
Right. So they were the originators for that seed of rebellion to be set in man, the fallen angels. Go ahead.
Other societies post-flood, whether
I got it. Other societies post-flood, whether it was Egypt, Sodom, Gomorrah, etc., followed after the standard that the fallen angels had established, which led to the destruction and judgment of these societies. We must learn not to follow after the abominable examples left by them, or the Most High will make examples out of us. Our rebellion against the Most High is what leads us into the many different forms of fornication. So now we got to think about it, solution-wise. That how else, being in the new covenant, how would the Most High protect his people from fornication? Because the new covenant says what? He'll put the law in our hearts and our inward parts. Now we all got baptized here. Well, not we all. But all of us who got baptized here know one thing that's certain. When you come out that water, you don't get spiritually zapped. So work has to be done. Because guess what? Guess what's one of the credos of the new covenant? Many shall be called, but few are chosen. So it's work that has to be done. Inward work. So that's how we fulfill the new covenant. Go ahead. So, I'm sorry. We had Ephesians chapter 5, verse 1. And it's quite a bit, but this is the last, set of scriptures, so we're just going to kind of read through these.
Ephesians chapter.
I got it. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 1. Be ye therefore followers of the Most High, as dear children, and walk in love, as Christ also hath loved us, and have given himself for us an offering and a sacrifice to the Most High for a sweet-smelling Savior. But fornication and all uncleanness or covetousness, let not be once named among you as becoming saints. Neither filthiness, nor foolish talking, nor jesting, which is a lot what Judah is known for, playing around, which are not convenient. That playing around, silly talk, that's what jesting is. Foolish talking, jesting, which are not convenient, but rather giving of thanks. For this ye know, that no whoremonger, nor unclean person, nor covetous man who is an idolater, hath any inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and of the Most High. Let no man deceive you with vain words, for because of these things cometh the wrath of the Most High upon the children of disobedience. And who do you think those people are with vain words? Peter talks about it. Those last days be teachers, right? Then also Christ talks about it. I never knew you. Lord, Lord, have we prophesied in your name? I never knew you. But guess what? Those people have followers. So let no man deceive you with vain words. Verse 7. Be not ye therefore partakers with them. And Proverbs, the first chapter, helps us understand not to run with the crowd. It says, come, let us rob and share one purse. Right? So let us rob in our wickedness. Let us fulfill our lust and our wickedness, and let's share the spoils. Let's share the joy. Right? Be not ye therefore partakers with them. For ye were sometimes darkness, but now ye are light in the Lord. Walk as children of light. So let's go to Colossians chapter 3, verse 1. You take a break. If ye then be risen with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ sitteth on the right hand of the Most High. Set your affection on things above, not on things on the earth. For ye are dead, and your life is hid with Christ in the Most High. When Christ, who is our life, shall appear, then shall ye also appear with him in glory. Mortify therefore your members which are upon the earth, fornication, uncleanness, inordinate affection, evil concupiscence, and covetousness, which is idolatry. For which things sake the wrath of the Most High cometh on the children of disobedience, in the which ye also walked some time when you lived in them. Right? So reforming the mind. So we got 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 1. You go ahead.
1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 1. Furthermore, then we beseech you, brethren, and exhort you by the Lord Yeshua, that ye have received of us how ye ought to walk and to please the Most High, so you would bound more and more. For ye know what commandments we gave you by the Lord Yeshua. For this is the will of the Most High, even your sanctification, and ye should abstain from fornication. that every one of you should know how to possess his vessel in sanctification and honor, not in the lust of concupiscence, even as the Gentiles which know not the Most High.
And just so we all know, concupiscence is lust of the forbidden. So it's deeper than regular lust. Go ahead.
Verse 6, that no man go beyond and defraud his brother in any matter, because that the Most High is the avenger of all such, as we also have forewarned you and testified. For the Most High had not called us unto uncleanness, but unto holiness. He therefore that despiseth not man, but the Most High, who hath given unto us his Holy Spirit.
Right, in verse 8 of D, he says, verse 7, for the Most High not called us unto uncleanness, but unto holiness. So that's the calling right there. And that's something we can always just bring our minds back to, like what we got called into. So let's get Revelations 21 and 5.
Revelation chapter 21, verse 5. And he that sat upon the throne said, Behold, I will make all things new. And he said unto me, Write, these words are true and faithful. And he said unto me, It is done. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of the water of life freely. He that overcometh shall inherit all things, and I will be his power, and he shall be my son. But the fearful and unbelieving, and the abominable, and murderers, and whoremongers, and sorcerers, and idolaters, and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death.
Right. Now, last set of scriptures, Revelations 21 and 22.
Revelation 21 and 22. And I saw no temple therein, for the Most High power Almighty and the Lamb are the temple of it. And the city had no need of the sun, neither of the moon, to shine in it, for the glory of the Most High did lighten it. And the Lamb is the light thereof. And the nations of them which are saved shall walk in the light. And the king of the earth do bring their glory and honor into it. And the gates of it shall not be shut at all by day, for there shall be no night there. And they shall bring the glory and honor of nations into it. And there shall in no wise enter into it anything that defileth, neither whatsoever worketh abomination and maketh a lie, but they which are written in the Lamb's book of life.
All right, so let's get the final commentary.
The Most High sent his Son to erase the standard and example that the fallen angels started and that the world has followed. We must follow the standard of Christ and walk after his footsteps, as the scripture says. In our previous lesson on the Feast of Dedication, we saw how Christ is the true temple and tabernacle, and that those of us that are baptized into the body make up the measure of that temple. And just like under the old covenant, there wasn't allowed anything unclean in the temple, so as to keep it undefiled, it's even more important that we are mortifying our temples, keeping them pure without blemish, spot, and wrinkle.
Right, and that makes a lot of sense, because in a practical sense, if you were building a temple, if you get some faulty foundation, you'll get rid of it and you'll fix it, right? Even if you was building a house or what have you, if it's, the siding is going bad, the roof is going bad, you'll fix that problem. And it's the same thing if we make up that measurement of the kingdom of the temple. Go ahead, Art.
Whores and whoremongers will not be allowed in the kingdom of heaven, brothers and sisters. It's time to flee from fornication and start partaking in the sins of Babylon and drinking from the cup she has weaned us on. We must put down our rebellious ways, all forms of fornication, and be in total obedience to the Most High. Shabbat Shalom, family.
Shabbat Shalom. Fleeing fornication. Fleeing fornication. So the brothers will grab the mics, and we'll go into the Q&A. We'll spend about 10 minutes. And if anybody has any questions or comments about the lesson, this is your time.
Shalom, family.
Shalom.
It's kind of funny you reading this. Kind of cued me into the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs. Just reading Judah's testament is like everything we just covered, like directly related. I mean, just to bring out a few key parts, like the title of his is Courage, Avarice, and Fornication. That's the title of his testament. And then he starts talking about how he's super boastful. And then he starts talking about how he drinks too much. And then he gets ensnared by women. And then he talks about how he has wicked children. Oh yeah, a wicked generation of children with the women. Or with Batsua, I think is her name. And then there's just one part in here, I was just reading it. And he kind of gives like a warning. Oh yeah, Judah accordingly warns his children against excessive pride, covetousness, and licentiousness, but most of all against indulgence of wine. So, I mean, Judah is like to really be forewarned. This is like not just regular for Judah. This is like seriously the downfall of Judah. It's all these same things we just talked about.
Yep.
So, that was just crazy.
Yeah, that's a great point, Arden. That's a great point. And it's like how in one of the commentaries, how they said like the devil, I think it's the intro commentary, how the devil knows that the church is so important that he'll make sure to inflict the church. So just like the spirits don't inflict Judah with those type of what you call inherited traits. So anybody else? We got Sister Wilson in the front.
Shalom.
Shalom.
I just wanted to make a comment in Leviticus 20, 15 through 16. We were reading about women lying with animals, and I just want to know. I just wanted to say that back when I was in school, I was learning about in the Greek, this woman and this man, they were in the kingdom or whatever, and this guy, he had this beautiful cow, I think, and the supposed God he was worshiping, it told him to kill that cow and sacrifice it to him, but he didn't. He killed a lower cow. And so, for his punishment, he made his wife lie with that cow, and it created some, I don't know what it's called. Yeah, Minotaur, and this beast that just killed everything in its sight and everything in its way. And that's what I just wanted to bring out. And I also got a question also about Leviticus 18:6 through 18, looking in the looking at nakedness and how Ham got cursed. And I had a question. This question been on my mind a lot. Lot, him, and his daughters, they came out the land, and his daughters got him so drunk, and they lied with him, and I just want to know why didn't they get cursed?
Right, yeah. Well, when it comes down to the curses, what you call the curses we read about apply to Israel, right? So just because the story is in the Bible, that doesn't mean it wasn't wicked, right? Because if you when you read the story, they thought the whole world was destroyed. So they thought that there was the last humanity and there was humanity's last chance. So they thought that they was about to repopulate the earth, and that's why they did that. It was wicked? Yeah, it was definitely wicked. That don't mean, it was a righteous act. But the curses that we read about it's because of it deals with Israel. But at the same time, those children, those nations are getting, they do have some trouble. The Jordanians and the Palestinians, so they are reaping that reward, in a sense. Yeah. All right, so is that it with the Q&A? Or anybody got any comments or anything? Is that it? All right, so who's here for the first time? We passed the mic around. Yep. We got a mic for you. You just stand, say your name, let us know who you are, how you end up coming here today.
My name is...
Well, we got the mic for you. Yep.
Well, my name is Terry Williams. This is my first time. I just came from Wisconsin, Milwaukee, and I followed the church on YouTube.
Oh, okay. All right. So, let me get this straight. You follow the church, and you're visiting from Milwaukee to come visit with us. Gotcha. All right, come. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, all praises for that.
Hello.
Hello. Shalom.
I had the opportunity of hearing your outreach ministry on 79th Street. I had decided to walk, and in terms of where I was going, and I was so impacted and so impressed with the brothers that was up there. So I came to your service.
That's great, and that's why we stay out there. That's why we're going to continue to go out there. But is that it? I think that's it.
Okay. This is brother want to have one more comment.
Oh yes, right.
Okay, what I want to say is that to the chosen people of the Most High God of Israel, we didn't keep the law, statutes, and commandments because of that, the curse is put on us. But to all other nations, things is not going to be applied to them, so they can eat as much, sin as much, and that does not apply to them.
Right.
About what we're supposed to do according to the Most High God. So a lot of things are going to happen. If we do not keep the law, statutes, and commandments, we fall into those traps and fall into those snares and do the wrong thing. So that's all I wanted to say on that.
Yeah, that's good. Because it's the same metaphor we always give. You might have one set of rules in one household and one set of standards and a completely different thing that goes on in another household. And you can't sit and get upset about this person not having to be in the house by 10 o'clock. It doesn't apply. They never received that understanding. Oh, we got another brother?
Shalom.
Shalom.
We was in baptism class today in Option Times. He had brought up a scripture that I think will go along perfectly with what the brother just said. It's Amos chapter 3, verse 1 through 3. It says, "Hear this word that the Most High hath spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family which I brought up from the land of Egypt, saying, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. Excuse me. Therefore I will punish you for all of your iniquities. Can two walk together except they be agreed?" So that's just putting more emphasis. Only us, you feel me, only gave law, statutes, and commandments to the Israelites. So.
Right. And bring it back home to the lesson today, which is why we got to understand that fornication, we were given the laws and standards of what fornication, we was given the definition of what fornication is. And we was given those laws on how to operate and avoid fornication. So, of course, if we do engage with that, we will be dealt with more, right? So that's why we could look at the different nations and what have you, versus us. But anybody else?
Yeah, one quick.
Yep.
It's real quick.
All I'm saying is, the lesson was excellent, right? So make sure you go home and when he posts the lesson up, look at the lesson again and think about it. Think about all the generations, our generations, with fornication. Because me, myself, I never ever knew a man or a woman who wasn't an adulteress on no level.
Right.
So you think about your generations and start applying the scriptures to fix yourselves. That's all I have to say.
And you just jogged something in my memory too, like when I was giving examples of me coming up, even in my early 20s with older men who was married, like I just found out like it was just natural for them just to have girlfriends on the side and do whatever. And I'm like, wow, so this, like, why are you married then? Like, what's the point? It's not even giving the respect. Like, it was just, and it would be talked about in some random way. Like, it's just business as usual. Of course, I got girlfriends on the side, and I do what I want on the side.
To that aspect, I got a scripture that goes with it. This is Sirach, chapter 41, verse 4 to about verse 10. And it says, and why art thou against the pleasure of the Most High? There is no inquisition in the grave, whether thou have lived 10 or 100 or 1,000 years. The children of sinners are abominable children, and they are conversant in the dwelling of the ungodly. The inheritance of sinners' children shall perish, and their posterity shall have a perpetual reproach. The children will complain of an ungodly father, because they shall be reproached for his sake. Woe be unto you, ungodly men, which have forsaken the law of the Most High God. For if ye increase, it shall be to your destruction. And if ye be born, ye shall be born to a curse. And if you die, a curse shall be your portion. Verse 10, all that are of the earth shall turn to the earth again, so the ungodly shall go from a curse to destruction. So, as long as we deal with fornication, we will never gain any aspect, you know what I'm saying, do anything, because we're not leaving nothing towards the children, because then they'll just become more, and just like how Christ said about the Pharisees and the scribes, you will gain a proselyte, and then make him twice as head as the child you was before. That's that's an aspect of fornication, and especially spiritually, it's even worse. So that's why we got to cut it out.
That's a great addition, Mark. And something, I was having a conversation with my wife, and just looking at it, because we really don't know, like Elder Gabar and others elders have said, we really don't know when Christ is coming back. And the whole Israelite thing might be ballooning in our eyes because we're so in that world. So anything Israelite, we're just going to, oh man, see, it's blowing up. But really, it's still small. And if you look at the generational work that has to get done, it's paramount. Like the brothers that are in our 30s and 40s, let's be real, and we gotta act this way, men. And you know I've only been a father for 3 weeks, but hey, you know.
Physically, mentally, you've been a father longer than that.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Hey. But if we take this mindset, hey, we might please the Father even more, and Christ come back sooner. But we got to take the mindset of investing in the children, because what I was saying, like the brothers in our 30s and 40s, it might be our grandchildren. So what's the baton that we're going to hand to our children to make sure that it gets passed on to that generation? Because something I was just thinking about is how far removed we are with family and children and community. We in the third generation from the civil rights movement, when our people clearly understood where we was at and what it meant to be where we was at. and the measures that need to be taken because we was where we were at. And look how the job was done. I can guarantee you these young folks is walking around do not know the main names. Granted, they only gave us 5 names, but I can guarantee you they don't know their names. And if anything, they do know their names because Harriet Tubman movie just came out. So it's just something to think about. How it's like the brother said, it's learned generation. So we almost like at a tilting, like he go, you know, and make the Most High tarry even more. Or, hey, we can tilt it in the right direction and please our Father. And you know, it starts with the children, But I'll leave it at that. So anybody else got anything you want to add? Oh, okay, all right.
Shalom.
Shalom.
So this lesson is like really, really good. All praise to the Most High. Because what I'm noticing in the like Hebrew Israelite community on social media is now I see a lot of sisters who are accepting this more than one wife thing, and the way that their brain is processing it is that you know, the Babylon has destroyed our men. There's not enough men for us, so we might as well just come together and, you know, just share the same husband. And since things are going down pretty soon, if our husband leaves for work, I'd rather be in the house with somebody, not be by myself, just in case they come knocking at the door. And that's just a really twisted mindset, but it's something that's starting to come out more, and they're openly speaking about it and accepting it, and this is a problem. So this lesson kind of will, of course, hopefully allude to a bigger lesson concerning that, but that's just something that I really see happening with our sisters, and it's really sad.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I haven't, that's a great observation. I'm gonna look into it. I like to keep my ears to the ground, if you will, and kind of know like who's the famous rap artists and read the comments, what's going on. And that's a good way. That's what you all can start doing. Like when you see a video, read the comments first, because that really lets us know like what's really the opinions and where our people's state of mind is at. But I'm gonna look into that and kind of just do my, what you call spiritual spy work. We got another one?
Yeah, just one quick thing. One of the things I've noticed in the past few years is that they actually have been glorifying the side spouse or side piece or whatever you want to call it and everything else. There's an artist, what was her name? Was it Caesar? How do you pronounce it? SZA. But she had a song talking about your man is my man and her man and your man too or something like that. So she's talking about sharing the dudes, and it's her weekend. And then, like with the whole Instagram thing, you know, there are people who have comics, or they have accounts, or they're comedians on Instagram or whatever. They've actually had skits where, you know, make sure you bring them back home with a full stomach and stuff like that or whatever. So they're glorifying the whole side spouse thing. So it's kind of crazy.
Hey, that's the world we in. Yep. Anybody else? Something you want to add? Yes, sir. We got Brother Bennett, the father of fathers.
Nah, just a quick comment. I got married very young, so not very young. I was 27, but that was one of the things that always stuck out in my mind when I would speak to older guys. They would tell me, like, you know, you gotta have a side chick. You know, that keeps the marriage going. That keeps it. I know that. It was just, all I was saying is that it was never something that I wanted to do. I couldn't understand what's the point of getting married if you're gonna still step out and, you know, not be married. So that's always been the atmosphere of it. When, cause that's like the advice that older guys gave me for being married. Like, you know, get you a side chick, cause that's the only way it's gonna keep going. And it was just something I never wanted to do, because, you know, what's the point of being married?
Exactly. Yep.
You know, so I just want to say that.
So we'll just end the Q&A with that, but I would say that, you know, what's the day? Christmas, right? Christmas is coming up. So if anybody, who this might be their first year having to deal with family, or if you got some troubled waters with family, if you want some ideas or scenarios that you need help with, just after class, just see the officers, let the officers know what's going on, and then we'll have a powwow and be able to get back to you on how to handle the situation in the home. Come? Because the holidays could make or break you. And I have some experiences where I was on high watch for the next few years just because my approach to the holiday season was totally off, right? So we want to make sure that we handle it with wisdom and show Christ, right? Because this is the perfect time to gain people because they might remember how you handled the holiday season a couple years from now, So we'll just leave it at that.
It really breaks my heart. Cause we've been lied to, misled for years, calling out to the Most High on this trail of tears.